for me happy. What if I'd been blue? Now I'm walking through fields of flowers.
Hello and welcome to this week's Red Robin Podcast Weekly, which is powered by Budget Tyres, Auto Centre and 𝗲𝓃60 Chartered Accountants. This week, the Robins go in search for their fourth victory in 5 games when they're taking on resurgent Leeds Rhinos side at Craven Park on Friday and what promises to be a tense and tight affair. Key players are returning from injury, and despite the absence of a whole host of first-team regulars, Danny Maguire has somehow kept the Robins within reach of the playoffs. Joining us to help preview our game against Leeds is Eddy from the Lock Pod podcast, with James Purling and Graham Turner making up this week's fan panel. Good evening, gentlemen. James, I'll start with you. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Graham, should we let people into a little secret? I think we've just done a little few-minute rehearsal, haven't we? We thought we was live and we wasn't. But like all, no. That's live.
That's show business, Chris.
Yeah.
That's show business.
Yeah, that's your business. But before we go into the Toulouse game and that important victory for the Robins, just before we've come on to do the podcast, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has announced his retirement from the game. He'll be finishing this season when his season at Keighley is up. James, a player who's fondly remembered by lots of Robin supporters. He came to us in 2006 from Leeds. A legend for many reasons, not least the way he took the club to his heart and his all-hearted performances when out on the pitch. And he's someone who sort of oozes red and white, really, which is strange when he's had a number of clubs and he's been at a number of places and he's had a long career in the game. But great to see him having such a long career, James, and what a fantastic career he had at Hull Kingston Rovers.
Yeah, he did. And I think, obviously he's part of the promotion-winning team. He scored our first try in Super League. So he's always going to have that place in the club's history. And yeah, I think, we speak about legends of the club, and I think, sometimes overused, but I think with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, it's well deserved. I think, he always, whatever club he's been at, I think he's obviously given 100%. He's always been a fan's favourite. I think just the way he went about playing, he sort of never gave up. Always gave 100%, and that's all us as fans. That's all we really want, really. And he's a great player.
Yeah, and Graham, before I come to you, Stuart Wilson's just commented, fondly remembered for that big hit against 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in his all-time favourite game, of course. The stuff of legends, that hit, isn't it? But that probably typified the way he played the game, didn't he? He never took a backward step, and he was always on the front foot.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think probably punching above his weight as well when it comes to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 as well, in terms of stature within the game, physically as well. He was not the biggest player, but certainly the heart of a lion to go with it. And I think every game that we saw him, and as James alluded to there, that he gave 100% win, lose or draw, and that was also typified, I think, as we saw him grow as a player from those early days of joining us as a relatively young player. And then growing up with the promotion, the Morgan era, etc., really blossoming into a mainstay of the team within that period. I think, for sort of 6 seasons that he was with us, you're right, he absolutely typified everything I think that we believe a player should be. Really hard working, fought for the club, fought for the badge, etc., and left everything out on the pitch. And I think he's continued to do that wherever he's gone. But on the same token, he's also done it with a smile on his face, and he looks like he genuinely enjoys playing rugby. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stuck around for best part of 20 seasons, I guess, playing the game. And, it's a brutal sport. So he must have done it for the love of the game to do it for so long. Yeah,
and we was fortunate enough to speak to him on one of our heritage casts. You can still catch it. It's on podcast available. Tune into it because it's a good listen. And 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, he just... James, he says he just loves the club. He came over here. The fans took to him straight away. He took to the fans, and he counts himself as an adopted East Huller. Hopefully now he's retired, or he's going to be retiring at the end of the season. We might see him back over, because he said he's desperate to come over and watch a few games and just stand in the East Stand and be a supporter, because that is what he's become. And I suppose it's testament to the supporters at the club, isn't it? How we take some of these players to our hearts and how we bring them into the fold. And, the fact he speaks so highly of the club and the supporters, it is testament to what we can do as a group of supporters.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, I think he sort of help galvanise the supporters and the sort of club playing, getting together, and he did all his talking on the pitch. And as I said, if that's all we can ask for. I think if we had a team of 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏, playing for us, we wouldn't go too far wrong, really. I don't think.
I don't think we're the quickest, though, would we, James?
No, there is that. Yeah. We might tackle a few of them more, though.
I was going to say that was always something that got levelled at him, wasn't it? His speed, but I think he was a bit deceiving. A little bit like Jordan Abdul is now, because I think he had a bit. He had a bit of turn of pace, and but he was an absolute magician with the ball in hand at times, wasn't he? And like we said, he was so powerful and strong for someone who might not look it. But yeah, it's going to be great. Hopefully, to see him back at Craven Park one day. And if he's listening or he's watching, Scotty, have a fantastic retirement, and we'll hopefully catch up with you very soon. Rovers going to the Leeds game this Friday on the back of a victory against Toulouse. Before we talk about the game, James, and we talk about who played and who scored, etc., what was your expectations before the game? Was there a bit of trepidation because Toulouse obviously fighting for their lives, fighting to stay in Super League? Many people, many outsiders, and probably many Robin supporters maybe had this marked down as an away win.
Yeah, I must admit I went to a certain amount of trepidation, having never actually seen Rovers beat Toulouse. So so this was my sixth game watching them. But yeah, it was, because as you said, they're fighting for their lives. I think they'd lost the previous two games, which I think people were expecting them to probably win because they were at home in that heat. So, and I think they'd had a bit of a rollick from Sylvain Houlès about discipline and things, and so essentially, I think sort of gifting a few points in the previous game. So yeah, very a great deal of trepidation coming into that game, I think.
Yeah, Graham. 5 changes from the side that lost to Wigan. Obviously, the last couple of games before that, we've been doing it extremely tough with injuries. The 5 changes: Sean Kenny-Dowell, Corbin Sims, Jimmy Kynors, Frankie Holton and Matty Staunton all came in to replace Will Dagger, Lachlan Coote, Conor Moore, Charlie Kavanagh and Sam Royal, who has now departed and gone back to St Helens. I appreciate James's trepidation, but when you see them players coming back into the team, you start to maybe feel a bit more confident, because there was certainly a big miss against Wigan.
Yeah, there were, and I think the 5 you reeled off there, Chris, who came back in, I think you could look at all of those and say they made a positive impact on the game and showed up as well. So it wasn't a case of easing them back in. They came in and they played like we expect them to play, but it made a real positive. And I think the real standout for me was SKD and him coming back in and his performance over the 80 minutes. It sort of typified him and the way he's performed for us. But I think at periods throughout the game, it was on the back of his work that other people lifted their game, especially when we were down 3-1, with 50 minutes on the clock. You almost feared the worst for that, but certain things within the game that he did and was the architect of were really powerful motivators, I thought, for the rest of the team to pull the socks up. Yeah,
and it took Rovers 12 minutes to get on the scoreline. Elliot Minchella crashing over from a short pass from Frankie Holton. Fantastic line from Minchella. Just before that, we'd seen Kenny-Dowell have a try disallowed. Saw George King, Jez Litton sort of break the Toulouse line. But bit of a relief, I suppose, James, for Rovers to get them first points on the board. And obviously, Roy Milnes following up with a conversion, because we started to see glimpses of what Toulouse might do. And it didn't seem to be classic Rovers at that stage, did it?
No, and I think that sort of try, I think it did sort of settle a few nerves. And I thought it was actually, in a way, it was quite a very well-worked try as well. I thought, Will Tate did really well in the build-up as well to sort of get away from a few tackles, get it onto Halton, and then Minchella just running that, fantastic line, just going through unopposed. He just made it look so easy. And yeah, it was a good start, and it's the start we needed. I think, we've said it often enough times on this podcast that it's important for us to start quickly and start well rather than going behind. And so I think we got the start we wanted, really.
Yeah, and then we saw 2 more disallowed tries. First one was Will Tate. he took a ball from Sean Kenny-Dowell. We then see, I think, 𝗵𝗂𝗃 again. But sandwiched in between that on the 22nd minute was a try for Toulouse. At that stage, Toulouse had done well, but it took them a while to get out of their half. But when the scores sort of Toulouse going for that try, you're starting to think, here we go, because and noticeably as well, the crowd were pretty flat at that stage. And it seemed to be a bit of an arm wrestle of a game. And obviously, like we've already said, that if Rovers don't get a few points in front, we seem to struggle. And Graham Toulouse scoring definitely didn't help people's nerves.
No, it didn't. And I think if we weren't aware as a group of fans anyway, we should understand what Toulouse can do. They've done it to us already not many weeks ago. And a player like Matty Russell, he knows where the line is, experienced enough, and you give him some opportunity, he will score. And he showed that on the first try that Toulouse scored, and he cut inside pretty well to score that one. And I think the point you made about the crowd, I think on Thursday night, I think the crowd were a little bit, like we've talked about, that trepidation. There was a lot of that in the air, and there was a little bit of relief when we went over and scored first, but we didn't really capitalise on that 20-minute period where we scored one, had a couple more disallowed, and then all of a sudden the second 20 minutes, it seemed to be Toulouse's time, and they scored, they got on top, and they dominated possession, and we just couldn't make good meters, whereas it was easy meters for them. And they scored the first try, which led to a second one, and then I think the crowd were sort of riding that scoreboard, if you like, and reflective of that. And I think looking forward to Friday, I think whatever happens on the scoreboard as a crowd, we've got to just completely make the noise, back the boys, etc. However we do it, and not get too hung up on the scoreboard at that time, because we've shown that we can win a game from in front, but we've shown also that we can win a game from 10 points down, not long into the second half. So I think we've got to not give any edginess off from the crowd that we might have, whatever goes on, and be really positive with the noise and create a really strong positive atmosphere for the boys to play on Friday night. But yeah, going back to your point around Toulouse, it was a try that they deserved. I thought they rode that first 20 minutes very well and only come away 6 down, and for them to then turn it around positively, I think shows credit to them. And I think people who take them as the whipping boys of the league, I think they've completely disproved that. You look at the number of games that I think they've lost 2 by the golden point, and they only lost back to us by 6. And there'll be a few other games during the season where they're 6 points or less defeats. You turn those results around, and all of a sudden it's a different picture for them.
Yeah. And James, we saw, one of the plus sides of us having so many injuries over the last few weeks is that we've been able to blood a number of youngsters into the side. I suppose what comes with youngsters and players learning the game is inexperience and errors, and we saw that, didn't we, with Will Tate and PLT when they made that mix up for Daniel Alvaro to go in and put Olympique Toulouse in front.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the kids they've got to learn sometime, and that's probably where they're going to pick up the biggest lessons, when they do make errors like that. But yeah, I think that one, that Alvaro try, was just really unfortunate. I think you can see what Tate was trying to do. He's trying to kick it out, and he just sort of basically hit his foot and then ricocheted up into PLT's hands, and he just dropped in. It's just one of those things. And Alvaro was just on the spot. I've seen some comments whether he was actually onside at the time, but obviously the referee didn't have a decide to go and have a look at that one. But they say it's a learning experience for them, and they've got to learn sometime. And I think I mentioned before that they're probably better off learning in a tense game against somebody like Toulouse, than in a Challenge Cup game against a lower Championship team. They'll probably learn more on that night than they would in a romp against team lower reach of the Championship in a cup. Yeah.
And then what you would say is they've got a fantastic supportive environment around them. I think Danny Maguire, the coaching staff, the club, very much realise that these are young kids and they are learning the game. Like you say, it's a good environment to be learning in. But that 10 minutes before half-time, Graham, credit to Rovers. Dan Maguire's already spoke about how proud he was of the goal line defence. Rovers really did have to dig deep, didn't they? Because you feel like if Toulouse had maybe got one just before half-time, it could have been a very different game come the second half.
Yeah, it could. And I think that's part of what we've seen over the last few weeks with that resilience that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, of where, at times we've watched Rovers long enough. We've seen instances like that where they would just fold like a pack of cards, and where one try comes, 3 tries come. So whilst we conceded 2 in the first half, and I wasn't too worried by the scoreboard at that time, because we'd created 3 or 4 good chances ourselves and only executed 1 properly, and had a couple of referee decisions rule the others out. So I wasn't worried that we weren't creating stuff, but you could very easily see that momentum shift after about 20 minutes, and it was all Toulouse. And I think you're right, that resilience and that doggedness, that will to stop the ball crossing the line at all costs. I think that was evident that was on show, and you could see them celebrating like they'd scored a try when they'd actually saved a try or made a tackle or got somebody in touch or whatever it was. And I like that in teams that's celebrating the wins on your own goal line, not just celebrating the tries on the opposition's.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, though, James, Rovers' Achilles heel, conceding a try just after half time once again. I can't remember the stat that I brought up a couple of podcasts ago about how many tries Rovers have conceded in that first 10 minutes after the second half. Toulouse had 5 repeat sets close to the line. I mean, credit to Rovers for managing to hang on for that long to repel them. But 𝗪𝗪𝗏 goes over from a dummy half pass from Peets. And all of a sudden, the crowd goes very flat straight after half time. Many supporters, though, James, I suppose, getting frustrated with the referee's performance, because he certainly wasn't winning any friends in that East End, was he?
No, it wasn't. I think, that sort of just before 𝗪𝗪𝗏 scored, he said five consecutive sets. And I think, we've got to give him credit, the defence credit for actually holding out for that length of time. And it just seemed it was almost like just the referee just wanting Toulouse to go over. And I think you probably find it hard to find a team who would be able to hold out for that sustained level of time that they had to defend within 10 yards of their own line, and it was inevitable. My concern was when they scored and made it 16-6 was what has that all taken out of them? Will they start to see them dropping off? But as Graham sort of mentioned, there's a lot of resilience in this group now. I think if we'd have gone back, probably pre-Danny Maguire taking over, we probably would have folded at 16-6. But whatever he's done to that team, he's took full credit to him. They've certainly got that resilience, that doggedness and determination to get themselves out of a hole really now.
Yeah. And then a player who to that moment probably wasn't having his best game in a Rovers shirt, Graham Rowan Milnes, coming from a bit of criticism from certain quarters, puts in a fantastic kick over Stephen Ryan, and Air Ryan goes in, flies up into the air and goes in for his 7th try of the season. And it's becoming a bit of a feature of his game now, isn't it, Ethan Ryan, that he's able to get on to the end of these kicks. And, I suppose it's one of them things where you can coach a team how to defend it, but when you're in game and that happens, it's very difficult with momentum, body weight, speed, all that kind of stuff to stop.
Yeah, I think the attacking kick and a good executor of an attacking kick can absolutely make the best defence look amateurish. And I think before I go through that point, I want to wind the clock back a minute or so before that, where there was an absolutely pivotal point in the game, in my opinion, where they kicked out on the full, just about 50 minutes or so, which led to us getting that particular set that we scored from. And I think it was evident that you could see that 10 minutes that Toulouse had put in, they'd put a lot of hard work into getting those 4 points on the board after half time. And then that gimme, you could almost see them deflate a little bit after that and think, right, we're back up against it here. That for me was a massive momentum shift. And then when you see the execution of it, Milnes gets the ball in hand and sort of crabs across the field for a while, looking for an opportunity, doesn't panic and looks at the options, is directing players with his hand where he wants them to run to try and create diversion, all with the aim of clearing the road for an attacking kick that, like you say, Ryan can use his pace. And even Matty Russell, as quick as he is, and having a few metres start on him, couldn't turn around quick enough and defend that. And Ryan was on top of him and, scored a good try. Still had to be scored. I don't think it was a gimme, but he did really well to score that. I think, credit where it's due for Milnes on that point, because I think we've all been wanting to see more from an attacking perspective from him. And I think in that moment we saw something really positive that he brought to the table.
Yeah, and you're right to pinpoint that kick out on the full, because I think Toulouse are just, their tails were up a little bit. They've got good field position from that kick. You know, Rovers maybe wilting. You know, but hey, I think what that showed me is, and you know, it's very much like the Danny Maguire Leeds side, is that when they sniffed an opportunity, when they realised that they were up against it, they took it. And you know, it's easy to say, but Roy Mills, like you said, creating that opportunity, getting that kick, you could just feel. I don't know, you know, obviously I was watching it on holiday in İBİFE, but in the ground you must have been able to feel like the tension just sort of popping a little bit, because it was just such a relief for that to happen.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there, Chris. I think at that particular point when that one went over, they looked deflated, and even though we were still behind on the scoreboard, I was confident that we were on the up and they were on the way down in that particular game. So again, that for me was a really pivotal couple of minutes where the kick went out, we executed on that, and then that really swung the pendulum back for us. And there was a lot of noise in the ground. Everybody was on the feet because they could see the scoreboard getting closer. We had possession, good possession. We were making good meters forward. So I think everything just sort of went positive after that. After you say that lull after half time and that 10-minute period where, oh no, here we go again sort of thing was the feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think it was a really pivotal moment in the game.
Yeah, and like you said, Graham, the crowd were up. The East Stand was rocking, and they'll have been rocking even more with just 8 minutes to go. Litton makes that fantastic break. He offloads from 𝗵𝗂𝗏, who knocks it back to Kenny Dowell. Somehow Kenny Dowell manages to get around 4 Toulouse defenders. He manages to stay upright for long enough just to get the offload to Frankie Holton, who barges over. Milnes gets the 2 points, and all of a sudden, you know, we talk about the tension lifting and that bubble bursting kind of thing. Well, wow, that was an explosion, wasn't it? Because also it wasn't just an important try; it was the manner it was scored in.
Yeah, it was one of those instances where they just didn't give up. You know, it was. I think it would have been very easy. I think was it 𝗵𝗂𝗏 who picked up that loose ball. It would have been very easy for them to panic. But you know, they kept their heads. There was this whole flurry of defenders going around. 𝗵𝗂𝗏 managed to get the ball out to Kenny Dowell and then onto Holton, and it took some scoring. But you know, I think then it was just sort of. I think that's probably, you know, another thing that probably just took all the wind out of Toulouse's sails. You know, thinking they'd put all that pressure on us at the start of the second half. They'd seen us come upfield on the back of a mistake from them, scored a try. They thought, you know, we could still hold out, but then all of a sudden the back level, and it's just, you know, thinking we can win this now. We can win this because I think they're gone. They were out on the feet.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, James. And I think if you wind the play back, Chris, I think that break from SKD to kickstart it started in our own sort of 40-metre line, somewhere around there. It bashed through and he offloaded to Lytton, who carried on the break to 𝗵𝗂𝗏, etc. And like you say, when you saw the actual try scored, you look at the number of Toulouse bodies just scattered all over the place, and they looked downbeat after that. They looked like a team that knew what was coming next, even though there were only 5 minutes to go. They knew that they were going to be really up against it.
Yeah, and if you go back to the 5 changes from the Wigan game, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Corbin Sims, Jimmy Carnos, Frankie Holton and Matty Staunton, I suppose it's that experience in them moments when you can sniff the chance. That's when you need your Kenny Dowells, you know, your Corbin Sims, Jimmy Carnos, Frankie Holton, whoever, you know, because they're the ones who can lead. And like you say, that drive out from Kenny Dowell, he's almost taking the team with him, isn't he? He's taking him with him. Jez Lytton goes up and does it. You know, it's a fantastic try. And, you know, Toulouse don't help themselves. Like you said, they look out on the feet. The knock on, not far from the sticks. The resulting scrum results in Roy Milnes going in for a try. I mean, you don't see many tries scored from a scrum, do you? But it probably that showcases how knackered Toulouse was. But I think the credit should really go to Rovers for sticking in the game and not giving up. Because like we said, the key moments in the game where Toulouse could have scored, Rovers didn't roll over. And Graham, to be fair, you know, as dogged as it was, as pretty as it wasn't, you know, we're not in the business of you don't get extra points for glorious, sparkling performances. You still get 2 points, and with the injury record we've had, that this could be one of the most important 2 points of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just on that last try, I think Phil Clark makes a decent point about it when you listen to whether love him or loathe him. But I think he makes a decent point about how we underestimate the importance of a scrum play and the scoring opportunity it can bring, because it ties a lot of players up and creates a lot of space across the field. So if you look at the way we lined up for that try, the ball comes out the scrum and gets in Litton's hands first. It goes to Parcell, who draws a couple of players in with a fake pass and then lets it go again, and then it goes on to Milnes from a walk-in. And it's made to look easy, but actually when you look at the analytics of it, it's a really well constructed try. What is Ron Mills doing out on the wing?
Mm.
Why is he there? You know, that for me was a set training ground move that was executed perfectly for a walk-in.
Yeah, definitely. Man of the match, probably, definitely, 100%. The returning Sean Kenny-Dowell. Some stats: 11 tackles, 8 tackle busts, 21 carries, 205 metres, 5 dummy runs, 4 offloads, 2 kicks. Not a bad 80 minutes of rugby league, was it, James?
Quite a night for him, wasn't it? Yeah, but when he was just absolutely outstanding. And he just seems to be, growing and growing and growing as a player, and as a leader at the club. And you can sort of see the rest of the team. Like Sir Graham said, he just dragged the whole team with him, and it was just an outstanding performance. And he's more or less doing it single-handedly, once he really. But yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. I was just going to say as well, as fantastic as SKD was, it was sort of head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch in terms of his quality. I think I want to pay credit to Jez Litton's performance as well, because is into the halves. Not somewhere where we normally see him. We normally see him spelling with Parcell at hooker. But I think if you look at the first try we scored, he made the initial break, a few tackles before that got us going upfield. He was on the shoulder as SKD went through to then play with Minchella to get that third try, and then he got his hand on the ball as well from that set play scrum for the fourth try, the ultimate one that won it. So I think his overall performance shouldn't go unnoticed as well, in terms of, whilst he wasn't spectacular like SKD was, I think that's overshadowed some of the great work that Litton did on the field on the night. Yeah,
and he's definitely someone who's benefiting from more game time on the pitch, isn't he? Which is fantastic. James, of course, a couple more injuries in the game. PLT and Sam Wood going down. We don't do it the easy way, do we?
We don't, no. I must admit, I was surprised I'd kept PLT on for so long, because it was clearly struggling. And I'm probably a bit surprised that Toulouse didn't try and exploit that more than they actually did. Give the lad a credit. He actually, he tried to run it off, and I think that again that just epitomises probably the whole character within the team, that they just don't want to give in. They just want to carry on and do it, whatever it takes. Sam Wood again, I thought had a good game, but it just seemed like a sort of a pretty stinger to his shoulder, really. So hopefully, he's in the squad, isn't he, for Leeds? So hopefully he'll come through. I don't think there's anything in the club bulletins about him being a doubt, but then we don't know until they announce the 17, do we?
No. So yeah, he's definitely in. With them injuries that I mentioned was, probably behind my poorly worded social media post about Zach Fishwick, in that did Danny Maguire get it wrong? Did he get it wrong in respect of, should we have seen him on more? Because I certainly wanted to see him on the pitch more. I think he's been fantastic in the time we've seen him so far. He didn't get much game time when considering the injuries that we had and the way the game was going. So it wasn't, no way was it a criticism of Zach Fishwick, and was it wrong to play him? It was almost Danny Maguire. Did he get it wrong by not putting him on? Obviously, the result is the result. We got the 2 points. So what do I know? Danny Maguire probably got it right, Graham.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think we can argue with, we got the result. In his overall development, it's another 10 minutes or so under his belt of experience in a tight game. He maybe was given a specific job to do within that 10-minute period that we are party to. So it may have been that, look, actually, Sims was having a really solid game as well. Maha was playing well. King was playing well. Can we, do we need to really shore it up with the experience first and foremost? Possibly, but you could argue that, in the last 10 minutes we were losing sent him on, and we actually won the game. So I'm not saying he was the reason we won it, but again, we've got to trust the coaches and Maguire of what they're doing with players and why they make certain decisions in game at certain times. It could be tactical, it could be fitness, injury related, but it was a nice card to have up the sleeve for that last 10-minute push of a fresh player coming on. And whilst he didn't have ball in hand a lot, he would have probably done a lot of unseen work that helped the team collectively.
Yeah, and James, while you might have people like me clamouring to have players like Zach Fishwick getting more game time, we do sometimes forget he's only 17. He might have the body of a 27-year-old, but he's only 17, and it's important that these players are managed.
I wish I looked like that at 27.
Yeah.
But we do need to manage them, don't we? And we need to be respectful of the fact that, we can't just chuck them in 80 minutes every game, that they do need to be managed.
We do, and I think it's probably a testament to Zach that he hasn't looked out of place at all in all the games he's played. And we're talking now as though he's like a as a player who's got bags of experience. When, like I say, hasn't, he's 17. He's probably played about 4 or 5 games coming off the bench. He's done fantastically well in all of those. But I was surprised when he wasn't on earlier as well on Thursday night. But you say at the end of the day, we won. So you could sort of say, well, actually, the Maguire's tactics justify. The means justified it. And as I said, I think replied to you, Chris, on the tweet. I think if you look at the forwards that Toulouse have got, they've got some quite, shall we say, more senior forwards. And you've got Hansen, who's mid-30s. You got Navarrete, who's knocking on a bit. You've got Alvaro. Even though they've got the experience, the legs are getting younger. It's a hot night. They've been running around. We've already said how they were out on their feet with a quarter of an hour to go, and to bring a young 17-year-old who wants to looking to bust a gut and show his worth. That was probably Toulouse's worst nightmare. Yeah.
But hey ho, we got the 2 points, didn't we? And we move on. Before we do move on, actually, we're talking about experienced players. Sean Kenny-Dowell, George King, also them both named in the Super League Team of the Week. George King, we're talking about experience, leadership, etc. He's a fantastic player, isn't he? And he's definitely going to be up there at the end of the season in the Player of the Year awards. So it's going to be fantastic to see where he ends up. But I mean, some stats from the night: 36 tackles, 10 carries, 95 metres, 2 offloads. Graham, George King, probably, if not the first, one of the first names on the team sheet.
Yeah, definitely up there with SKD as the first names on the team sheet at the minute. I think he's consistently 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week. Never seems to have a bad game, and is exactly what we needed. I think probably a few people might have raised an eyebrow at the beginning of the season when he was signed for us, but he's absolutely the sort of grafter that we need every team needs in their club. Not spectacular by any means, but does the really simple stuff really, really well, and can go for big minutes, which is really useful as well. When you see some of the forwards who play in his position just doing 10-15-minute stints, George can really do big numbers in terms of shifts. And again, my fear is that we rely on him too heavily, especially when we've had the injuries or bans like we seem to be picking up left, right and centre for the forwards. So again, without wanting to burn him out, some help for him would be useful to make sure that we can get that rotation of props right, so that we're not reliant totally and gas him out, and then he's no use to us on the field whatsoever, and we just get steamrolled through the middle.
Yeah, and of course, Jesse Sue incoming. Hopefully, he's going to aid his development and game time, etc. Totally different players, I suspect, but it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out next season. But our victory for Toulouse puts us in a great position going into our game against Leeds on Friday night under the floodlights on Sky Sports. It's surely going to be a humdinger. Leeds Rhinos are bang on form. They've become resurgent under Rowan Smith. And to help us preview the game is Eddy from the Lot podcast. Eddy, thanks for joining us.
Evening, Eddy.
Evening, all.
Great. I think the last time we spoke to you, Eddy, I'm sure had Rowan Smith just been appointed
No, we had 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄.
Was it 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄 still?
We had 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄 still. I think Smith had he just been appointed, but not here yet. Something
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
it was that. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Or JJ, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then I think you just signed 𝗁𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗃 as well.
We
it
did.
was doom and gloom. You was telling us how much Rovers were going to beat Leeds, etc., etc.
I did.
And then we turn up on the night and we get turned over by Leeds, and which was probably one of, if not the worst performances of the season. So Eddie, I was just saying, hopefully you're not the kiss of death. And
hopefully I am.
Yeah, well, for you, yeah. But no, I'll tell you what. 2 questions. Obviously, what's changed since then? Because obviously, prior to that, resulted in 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄 departing from his job, and obviously, did you expect to see that change in form?
What's changed since then? Rowan Smith. That's it. Yeah. I mean,
he wasn't first choice, though, was he, by a lot of Leeds fans?
No, and even if a Leeds fan says to you that they were happy, or impressed when we signed Rowan Smith, I think they're lying. Majority of Leeds fans kind of, when it was announced, it was more like, who? We don't know who this guy is, or his pedigree, a bit of time at Bradford, but he's been the change. And to be honest, looking at the squad we have and had under 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄, I was kind of thinking, regardless of getting rid of 𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗄 and bringing someone new in, I was under the illusion, what could they do with these players? Because they're crap. That's how I felt. Or the majority of them were crap. So for Rowan Smith to come in and kind of turn our form around and got us playing like we have been, it's testament to him, because it's not his squad yet. I know we've got a lot of players leaving, and Liam Sutcliffe were confirmed to be leaving yesterday, and we don't know what's going on with Dwyer and Hardaker and loads off contract. So it'll be interesting to see what Rowan can do when he's brought his own, kind of moulded his own team. I know it's going to take time, but it's been really, really impressive what we've seen from Rowan Smith in the short period of time he's been here.
You're on mute, John.
Since that 12-0 victory over the Robins, is it 7 victories out of 11? So it's a massive change in form. Who would have been the standout players during that period?
Rhys Martin, who you'll lot will be glad to hear is banned. But Rhys Martin's been our player of the year. Harry Newman, since he came back, especially against Wigan, played like a man possessed, just absolutely phenomenal. And I've got friends who are Cast fans and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 fans, and they see him on Sky and they kind of say he just stands out an absolute mile, that kid. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has been our only consistent prop all year. So he's literally been our pack. We've had James Donaldson playing in there, Bodine Thompson playing in the pack. So they've been the real standouts. To be honest, I'm not a 𝗁𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃 fan. Things he's done off the field. I don't want us to sign him permanently after this year, but on the field, you cannot fault him at all. He is an awesome player, but he will blow up. So to me, as a Leeds fan, I'd prefer to just shake hands with him at the end of the year and say, adios, you've helped us, we've helped you. But those under Smith have been the catalyst, really, of this upturn in form.
Yeah, and we're going to go into detail about the Leeds squad shortly, but we'll just announce who's been named in the Rovers squad. Harvey Moore and Corbin Sims drop out of the squad, while Kane Lynette, Ryan Hall and Mikey Lewis all come back into contention for Friday. Obviously, a huge return. Kane Lynette coming back in after he suffered a bicep tear and our win over Wakefield back in April. Lachlan Coote misses out. He passed his HII test but failed his return to play. So he's been monitored and he's expected to feature next week. So Rovers line up like this: Ben Crooks, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Ryan Hall, Matty Parcell, George King, Kane Lynette, Matty Staunton, Jez Litton, Elliot Minchella, Jimmy Kinehorse, Mikey Lewis, Rowan Milnes, Will Maher, Ethan Ryan, Sam Wood, Greg Richards, Frank Holton, Will Tate, PLT, Zach Fishwick and Connor Barley. James, I'll just come to you first. A huge loss, isn't it, Lachlan Coote? I think we all expected to see him feature against Leeds Rhinos, and we've just been talking about the Toulouse game and how important it is to get experienced players back. And, if you're fit 𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏 into that side, it brings a huge amount of experience and quality as well.
It does, and I think I think that was the biggest surprise when I saw the squad announced today. I think because I think Maguire had mentioned in the press conference that he was going to play, just had one more test to do, and I think it didn't seem to be too bad an injury if on a sort of scale. So I think there's all expectation he's going to be back, but yeah, I think he will be a big loss on Friday night.
Yeah, he's going to be a huge loss, but obviously it opens the door now. We've got options, haven't we? We've got potentially young Phoenix, whether he comes back in at fullback, potentially Ben Crooks, Will Tate. Obviously, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Ryan Hall, Kane Lynette all look to be united on that left edge, which frees up some spaces elsewhere. Ryan Hall, Graham, and Kane Lynette coming back into that left edge is going to be a huge boost for the Robins, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think we've talked week after week after week on this podcast around the benefit of Ryan Hall and what he brings to us in terms of, I'm sure Eddy will allude to this as well, what he brings to us certainly out of that backfield and tackle one, tackle two, clearing our lines, and the strength and power that he can bring to that and cause issues for opposition defences. So we've missed that hugely. So it'll be fantastic to have Hawley back as well. And like you say, that left trio of Hall, SKD, and Kane Lynette has been potent for us over the last sort of 2 seasons or so. Whether Lynette's going to come straight back in firing like SKD did after a short layoff. Obviously, Lynette's been out for a lot longer with his bicep tear. Whether he can come in and hit the ground running, whether he's going to need a bit of time to get back up to full speed or not. But it'll be good to see that left edge firing and being solid again. Yeah,
definitely. And I suppose, Eddy, good news possibly for you. One player who's named back in the squad who could feature but might not feature is Mikey Lewis. At the Rover Supporters Group Awards evening on Monday, he was interviewed and he's back full training, but basically they're monitoring his ankle. Obviously, he suffered a serious injury with that. And they spoke about how there was no rush to bring him back into the team. Because, Eddy, if you bring Mikey Lewis into there, it changes our dynamic totally. It frees up 𝗍𝗏𝗏 to then go back to playing at hooker, So it changes the whole dynamic, and that's what's going to be really intriguing about Friday night with these returning players, is how we line up, because we're starting to put more round pegs in round holes rather than square pegs. And for me, that gives me a lot of confidence going into the game, and it gives me a lot of confidence when I see Aidan Sezer, Rhys Martin, David Fusitua, Matty Pryor, Cruz Lehman, James Donaldson all missing. They must have been big players so far during this current run you've run.
Yeah, as I say, Rhys Martin being a player of the year, Fusitua, banging form, Aidan Sezer, banging form. Prior to Cruz getting his injury, he was, again, one of our mainstays this year. So it's Leeds at the moment. We kind of get one back from a ban, and then another gets banned. It's just that consistency, but it's definitely picked up in terms of our disciplinary, because prior to Rowan coming in, our disciplinary were diabolical. I know 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 got 5 games at Saints. That's been the only real serious one. The others have been a bit...
Well, to be honest, Eddy, I've noticed James Bentley's in the squad, and he's normally copped a ban at some point, hasn't he, this season?
Rowan definitely got hold of him and kind of said, look, it has to stop. Because I said on our podcast, he was playing like a moron. He was. No, in my opinion, no doubt about it. He was. Smith's obviously spoke to him and said, look, this is the James Bentley now that he's moulded that we thought we were getting from Saints. He's leading the defence, he's shed loads of tackles, his desire, his commitment, with him being a local Leeds lad as well. It's kind of like Smith said to him, look, these are your people. You used to stand in that south stand, so show them who you are and what you've got. But prior to Smith, he was a completely different player. But like one of those where when we made the signing from Saints, everyone was saying, what a pickup that is. And then when he put him in a blue and amber shirt and was like, who's that? They've sold us a dud. They've sold us Jim Bentley or something. They sent the wrong one. But he's been banging form, and all credit to him. He's turned his season around.
Yeah, fantastic. And only a 19-man squad. for Friday night. I mean, I was surprised when he signed. Was it 𝗂𝐵𝗿𝗂𝗴𝗂𝗏 from Wakefield on loan?
Yeah.
You know, Leeds famed for its sort of conveyor belt of young talent, and you know, you only have to look at some of the players who are playing at other clubs now to see, you know, how that talent's come through. But was you surprised that you've got a 19-man squad and the maybe, or have you maybe used all the young players who you could play this season?
I think so. We kind of thrown in a couple of kids this year, like 17. You know, they are kids. We did it at Toulouse when we're down to the bare bones there, and Sinfield played, and Max Simpson, a few others, Corey Johnson and the like. But I feel like with that 𝗂𝐵𝗿𝗂𝗏𝗏 signing, even though we were down to the bare bones at Toulouse and the weather and everything into account, Rowan Smith chose not to play him. I don't know why. He was there. He was just our water carrier. And then he played the following week against Wigan and played pretty well, to be honest. And Leeds fans were like, wow, it looks like there's a player there. And then I think at the following day, it's announced he's going back to Wakefield. It's like, we get one in. He could have played two for us and ends up playing one, and then we send him back anyway. But I think our squad still needs some quite major surgery. As I said earlier, there's a lot of players who are leaving. You know, Briscoe, Dwyer, Mellor, already gone. Broadbent's gone. Bodine Thompson, Mustafa. We don't know what's happening with Jack Walker. We don't know what's happening with Hardacre. So there's still so much up in the air for next year. And in terms of recruitment, it does look like Rowan's got a hand on that, because the recruitment for this year, we've been rumoured to be linked with young championship players and lower league players. That's not been the Leeds way recently. So it does feel like Smith's kind of said, if I am taking this Leeds job, I want control of who I'm going to mould this squad into.
That sounds more like Tony Smith than Rowan Smith.
Yeah. Very similar, especially in the way that we've been playing. You know, seeing that, you'll have seen it yourself, but when Tony Smith first came in, that free-flowing, offloading game and just constantly keeping the ball alive, that seems to be the backbone of Rowan as well. I think they're just clearly working in tandem, them two.
So is that the style of rugby league we could, Rovers fans could expect to see on?
Oh, you'll definitely see it. It's been the way Leeds have attacked. Even you get these Leeds have started releasing these behind the scenes videos after games on YouTube, and you kind of give you little bits for behind the scenes, and it'll give you a little couple of clips in team meetings. And the theme has been rolling like, just keep it alive. The best way to defend is a tackle. Let's keep attacking. And it's been miraculous because there's been games this year, like that Wigan game when we didn't have any halfbacks and we'd just been beating Toulouse, a short turnaround, back at Eddy under a Wigan side who just battered, I think it was Hull. Leeds fans, they were thinking, we have no chance. And yet, because of that attacking style that Rowan Smith brought in, we ended up battering them, and everyone were like, how's that happened? And then off the back of that, at Catalan and then Salford. But it's been good to see whether we can keep it up with the squad and the bands and the injuries. I know everyone's got this, whether we can keep that style up. But Smith's kind of said after the Salford game that the Wigan win, the Catalan win, and now the Salford win were all three different types of wins, if that makes sense. Like we battered Wigan, we went toe-to-toe with Catalan, and in a sense went toe-to-toe with Salford because they put a lot of pressure on us, and especially in the second half, we defended a lot. So it were like three different types of wins, and he seemed pleased with it, and us as fans are obviously pleased with it because we seem to be hitting some decent form at the moment. Yeah.
And Eddy, Friday night for me, it seems like a huge game. Probably more so for Rovers. I think we desperately need that win to
big game
keep amongst the pack. I think Leeds could possibly lose it and still be within there and it not affect them too much. But I wonder from Leeds fans, like what the feeling is coming over to Craven Park, whether there's an expectation to get a victory or whether you're really just travelling in hope, like we said, on the back of the suspensions and injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say, had we not had these suspensions, I think Leeds fans would have been confident off the back of the Wigan, Catalan, Salford win. But now with these and being patched up, and I think Blake Austin's in the side now. He hasn't played for around a month. He'll be a bit rusty, and we're going to have probably Liam Tyndall on the wing, and Rhys Martin's an incredible goal kicker, so I'm not sure he's going to be kicking the goals for us. I think it probably be 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So again, we are quite patched up, but I do, with our attacking style I mentioned, I do fancy us to go toe to toe here. But whether we can come away with something, I don't know, because it sounds like you guys have got some decent players back, and Hull Kingston away is always a tough game for anyone, really.
Yeah, although I think our recent record against Leeds in all games is I think we've only got 2 victories out of our last 11. So we haven't been doing so well against Leeds anyway. But I think there's a reason, Sky, you've picked this game.
Me too, yeah.
I think
you've got the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 element as well, that kind of...
Yeah. I wonder how many times that'll get mentioned, let alone the fact that Ryan Hall also played for Leeds.
And Jimmy.
How have you, just to nip in, sorry, how have you found Danny? I love Danny Maguire. I think I said it before, but I think he's the best person that's ever lived. How have you found Danny's small? And has
I'll let you answer that.
Well, I think he's sort of slowly elevating himself in his 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏 status, Eddie. From the way that he's sort of conducting himself, in all seriousness, I think he's an absolutely fantastic player in the past. But as a person as well, every time he's interviewed or the comments he makes are very down to earth, grounded comments. I think he's a genuine person that loves the game of rugby league. And it was interesting to read this week that even though he's had some fantastic years with the Rhinos from his playing career, he said himself that he's not got a lot of connectivity with anything to do with Leeds nowadays. All the players that he used to play with have left, and the coaching staff has moved on, etc. So now he's feeling that affinity and passion that he used to have as a player for Rhinos for us in the east of the city, which is fantastic to hear as fans, because we know what a legend he is in the game, and we've got a couple of young halfbacks there that, if they can't learn from Danny Maguire along their journey in terms of Jordan Abdull, Ron Mills, Mikey Lewis, come on, lads, you've got the best in the game that's played the game for a long while to learn from. You cannot have it on a player any better for you. So I think I feel really honoured that he's working with our players, with our group, and like you said there, Eddie, around the change that's happened since Agar to Smith. I think we've noticed a change from Smith to Maguire as well in the style of play, the attitude of players as well. There's a certain resilience creeping into our game that we didn't have, and we've got a bit of a backbone to us now. And when the chips are down, we don't automatically, fold like we have done in the past. So I think he's bringing some different mentality to players as well. So I think for us, that's my overriding impression of him being involved with the club as a player for a couple of seasons and as a coach for the last 12 months or so, and now taking the helm for the last 4 or 5 games or so. I think it's been a really good piece of business for him to get him on a long-term deal as an assistant in the future.
Definitely. I felt that when Tony Smith left and Danny stayed, at that moment I thought he's all in over there. He's obviously settled and he's bought into everything, and the fact he stayed and then became interim, I knew at that moment, I thought, no, there were a little link with him coming back to us at that time, but once he stayed there, I thought, no, he's really bought into the place over there. It's good to see. Yeah,
and I think for me, what I've noticed with him is almost, whether psychologically or not, he's boxed that time off at Leeds, and I watched a press conference with him yesterday, and there was 4 national journalists, and every question was about Leeds, about his family, about everything, and it was almost like he was embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the past, get over it.
Yeah, like Graham said, that he's balls deep in Rovers. He's fully invested. He's I was paraphrasing you then, Graham, not quoting.
Yeah, I didn't go quite that explicit, but I can't get that image out of my head now.
Yeah. But it's interesting as well, Ryan Hall, isn't it? A player who
champion, absolute champion.
Famous probably as Danny Maguire, part of that generation. So it's really interesting to see how they've come over to Rovers. And I think part of why we brought people like that in, and why Tony Smith brought people like that in, is because the winners, the professionalism, the whole culture, of what they're used to. And I think credit to them, because it didn't quite work with Jamie Peacock when we brought him over to Rovers. That didn't quite work out. But credit to them, they've been able to come over, bring all that with them, and then also adopt into sort of the Rovers way and get into the Rovers way of life. So it's fantastic what they've managed to do. So if we look at Friday's game, Eddie, your prediction?
I do think it'll be close. I'll happy if we can nick it by 2 or 4. I'd be happy if we get anything, to be honest. But yeah, Leeds by 2, I'll say.
Yeah. What about you, James? Are you feeling confident? Are you in that, could go either way camp?
Oh, it could go either way. I'm going to go, I think, for a Rovers win by 4. It's going to be a very squeaky bum, I think.
I agree.
What about you, Graham?
Yeah, I think I'm with the gents here. I think it's going to be a close one. The thing I like a lot about the Leeds games is there's a proper atmosphere because Leeds bring a decent following with them, whether it be a Sunday afternoon, a Friday evening, under the lights. I think there'll be a good crowd to make a good atmosphere, and I think we as home fans will feed off the away fans' atmosphere as well, and that will help create a proper atmosphere at the game. Hopefully the game lives up to that, and we come out on top. And I think, look, just because Leeds have only named 19 men, that doesn't mean anything, because they're still going to send 17 blokes out there with a plan to turn us over. So we've got to be on our game, and I think if we are, we can get our strong play, our senior players back and playing, and show the same desire and commitment. I think we can squeak it by 6 again.
Yeah, I think I'm quietly not quietly. I'm quite confident. I think it's going to be one of them great nights at Craven Park under the lights. The reason why Sky like coming over to Craven Park and bringing the cameras, etc. I think Danny Maguire's got the boys buzzing a bit. I think the returning players just add so much depth and quality to us. I think we've got a really fast running game, probably similar to Leeds at the moment, Eddie, in that, when our tails are up and we get a sniff, we can really go for it. The only probably caveat to that is if when things go maybe slightly wrong, they can go really wrong. But the Toulouse game, our last victory was great evidence of how actually when the chips are down, we can still grind out a result. So, I'm really looking forward to it. I think Leeds have been doing discounted coach travel as well, haven't they? So there probably will be good, maybe 1,000 Leeds fans there, which will be fantastic.
Good crowd.
Because one thing we seem to struggle with is away fans at Rovers for whatever reason. So it'd be great to have a good atmosphere. The sun should be shining. It's promising to be a cracking night of rugby league. I suppose, Eddie, just before we let you go, is that I wonder, as an opposition fan and someone who's obviously Leeds Rhinos through and through, sort of how the perception of Hull Kingston Rovers might have changed over the last few years. Obviously, the Tony Smith era, and what we're trying to do. The signings we're announcing. 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗧 was the latest one today.
Today.
It'd be just interesting to get your perspective on an outsider's perspective on Hull Kingston Rovers at the moment.
I think as a Leeds fan, there's a lot of connections to Leeds there, like you've mentioned. There's 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏, 𝗵𝗏𝗄𝗏, Rhino, Danny Maguire, players that we absolutely love. And we've also got that. Well, me personally, I've never had any dislike towards Rovers at all, because we've kind of got that mutual hatred for everything black and white. So to me, it's always been like, what's the saying, enemy of an enemy is a friend type thing. So I've never, I can't stand Castleford. Any other sides I really dislike, but when it comes to 𝐾𝐻, I've never had an issue. I think it's one of the best away days. Can't remember if it was James or Graham, who said, I think it was Graham, who said, the away fans and the home fans, they feed off each other. I've had loads of good away days at 𝐾𝐻. I don't know why you're struggling to get away fans there. It's one of the best atmospheres in Leeds, better than Eddy. And again, that there's a reason Sky have chose this game. It's kind of the Danny Maguire element, of course, but then the two teams do play good rugby. The signings you've made, I think, are impressive. I'd be impressed if we signed them. I'm not sure about your coach. I don't know much about him, but that don't mean anything because I didn't know anything about Rowan Smith, so that just doesn't mean nothing. Quite keen on you. I don't dislike you, but I don't love you. But yeah, I've got a soft spot for Rovers, especially with Danny being there. He's like my idol.
Yeah. It's funny though.
Sorry, John. I think just on that point you made, Eddie, about the coach, you don't know much about him, but reading one of the reports this week from Frankie Holton, he says that the players have had regular conversation with Peters.
Oh wow, already,
yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Even though he's not coming in, so he's sort of casting an eye over all the games that are going on currently.
Yeah.
He's on the text message and the trading messages with the coaching staff and the players. So that effect that's going on now, whilst Maguire's at the helm as the interim, I think they're putting it down to a little bit of the Peters effect as well, of having a little bit of influence.
Sounds that way.
Yeah, and of course, none of that would have been possible with Tony Smith still in the camp. So obviously the removal of him as head coach has speeded
that became
up.
untenable. He had to go. Yeah, I think he had to go.
Yeah. Well, Eddy, it's been fantastic. Really appreciate your insight into Leeds, and like we said, we hope it's a fantastic evening on Friday, and of course we hope the Rovers win. But no, thanks for joining us, Eddy, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, cheers, Eddy.
Speak soon.
Yeah, just while we stay on that Leeds game, one player who's some supporters will say is playing for a contract. He's playing for a new move. Some people say, well, actually, he's just been given a chance now, and for whatever reason, him and Tony Smith didn't see eye to eye. But Corbin Sims has been pretty impressive over the last few weeks. Disappointing to see now, though, that he's copped a ban and he's going to be missing on Friday night.
Yeah, I think we said last time, didn't we? That is since Smith's gone, there's something just has clearly happened between the two of them, and since he's gone, he's been a complete revelation. And I'd say, you could always argue he's playing for a contract, but I think he's going to probably go back to Australia at the end of the season. I think saw somewhere said he'd probably retire. There's obviously his family's back in Oz. That's going to be a big draw for him, and so the pressure's maybe off him as well. And the fact that Tony Smith isn't there, and that negativity that perhaps surrounded them has gone as well. And I think he's probably showing to be the type of player that we thought he was going to be, but unfortunately he's copped another ban.
Yeah, very frustrating.
It's a bit ridiculous one, but hey. Yeah.
If anyone who's been fortunate or unfortunate to actually see the incident, seems, as opposed to the letter of the law, you could maybe say he deserves it. I mean, in the spirit of discipline, I don't know whether he deserves it. I think Danny Maguire, though, said, look, he probably deserves it. Is it the right call? Maybe not, but it's frustrating, nevertheless, that you've got a player who's starting to hit a bit of form, and probably the story of his career at Hull Kingston Rovers is just as he's hitting the form and he becoming the player you expect him to be, boom, gone. You don't see him again, and it's another couple of weeks before he comes. And that is the biggest frustration. 𝗷𝗵𝗿𝗂𝗃 missing again. When we get the injury reports, it's a calf strain. He should be back next week. Before you know it, he's missing 3 games. And this is where we talk about value for money, and it's nothing personal against them players. They're not getting injured deliberately. It's just frustration that we don't see more of them, because as supporters, we want to see more of them. Graham, big call to make at fullback, I suppose. Young Phoenix, do you go with him in a big game? We've got other options now that Ryan Hall, Kenny Dowell, they're back in the fold.
Yeah, I think obviously Maguire made that call last week with PLT, based on the players that he had available to him. Does he go with that same call, given the shuffling that no doubt will happen to accommodate people coming back in, the senior players that are coming back in, the Kane Linnetts of this world, and obviously SKD, we would see him in again. So, like you say, Crooks came on in the second half and played for PLT. So I think it's between those two for that particular role. I don't think either did anything particularly wrong. I thought Crooks looked a little bit more solid than PLT. And when you sort of see him physically, it does look like a 19-year-old kid, and he got sort of pushed back a few times. But having said that, I don't think he made no horrendous errors with the ball or whatever was put his way. And like James said earlier, I think they maybe could have exploited him a bit more when he was, carrying his head like a lame horse in that period in the first half. It was like, let's get him off and let's get a fit player on to cover that. But I think he might go with Crooks.
Yeah, I think he'll go for Crooks only because I don't think he can afford to have a Crooks on the bench again against Leeds. Yeah. So I see it as It's a straight shootout between them. You know, obviously you've got the option of 𝗏𝗏𝗃 potentially. I was impressed by 𝗏𝗏𝗃's sort of carry out from back play. I think he brings.
I think we've said that every week, though, John. I think we've all said collectively for the last 6 weeks that 𝗏𝗏𝗃 has been impressing us with is solid, is physically quite a strong guy. His carry out's good. So again, it could be another one that could be thrown into that number one shirt.
And then, of course, you know, Mikey Lewis, Willie Waty, you know, if he plays, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 doesn't then have to play in the halves, James. It frees, it almost changes our game plan a little bit, doesn't it? Because it just, you know, gives us a lot more options in attack if Mikey Lewis plays.
Yeah, it gives you a lot. Yeah, it does. It does. And I was sort of thinking about where I put it. And I think he will play Lewis, put Lewis and Mills in the halves, and then allow Litton to go on the bench and come on and do what him and Pascal do really well. And just, you know, when teams are tiring, carve up the openings. Yeah.
So it is promising to be a great night of rugby league. Before we sign off, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 spoke. Did an interview with a Daily Mirror. I think it'd be only fair that we just mention what he said. I think one of the telling quotes from the article was regarding Neil Hudgell, Tony Smith, and Paul Lakin. They stuck by me. Neil Hudgell, Tony Smith, our coach at the time, and CEO Paul Lakin. They were so good to me and I wanted to repay them. I'm just filthy that I couldn't do that for them. That was the most disappointing thing. The reason I found that interesting is because, Graham, a lot of people levelled that situation as being the reason why potentially Tony Smith, Paul Lakin, etc. had a bit of a fallout. But obviously from that, there was all in 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃's camp. So you'd assume that there's some other reason, some other fallout behind the scenes. And another point as well, he's still hoping to play this season, albeit if Rovers get in the playoffs. His injury rehabilitation is supposed to be going really well, and he's still hoping to play for the Cook Islands in the World Cup. So obviously any game time will be good for him. It'd be, unless we suffer an immense injury crisis and we get in the playoffs, it's going to be a bit of a tall order, isn't it?
I think so. And if we've got, you know, looking at what we've seen this season, if we've got a relatively fully fit squad, I'm not quite sure where 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗏 fits into that with the players that are playing in form, and to bring him in after such a long layoff and expect him to perform at playoff standards, having not been battle hardened, as it were, for the last few months. I think that's a real ambitious statement that is made there. I'm not saying it can't be done, but like you say, I think it's if things go against us on the injury front again and we're down to bare bones and he's fit and available, then yeah, I think he gets a game. Ordinarily, if we keep this level of squad availability to us for the next few games, I don't see him fitting into that anywhere.
Yeah, what do you reckon, James?
I don't see how he could play anywhere, regardless of what happens. You know, if we get any more injuries, you know, I think he didn't deserve a place on form when we did play. So we've not lost anything with him not being in the squad. And I think if he doesn't, we do get some injuries. We have to draft we need some bodies in there. I'd rather play kids again, give them the experience. He's not going to be here next season. There's no benefit to the club for him to then have another couple of games, just to sort of fill a team out. Give some of the young kids a go.
Yeah. I suppose that ship sailed, hasn't it? But as we all know in sport, you know, who knows? And so, you know, you've never say never. And finishing on some really good news, Tom Opacek has finally confirmed that he's signed for the Robins. Of course, it's been a bit of an elephant in the room since Willie Peters announced who he'd signed. What was that, over a month ago now? He's been confirmed on a 2-year deal, made 76 appearances in the NRL, scoring 24 tries. He's played for the Broncos, North Queensland Cowboys and Parramatta Eels. I think interestingly for me, when he spoke to Hull KR, he said, I was looking at a few different options here in the NRL. Then Willie made contact and really sold it to me. He wants to do something special at Hull KR, and I took what he said on board. I suppose what really, really pleased me about this signing, Graham, is the age, the physicality of him, the desire. You know, obviously you can read into all the words. They're all the positive words, everything you expect him to say. But this, for me, is a real statement signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think cutting through all the spin that comes with every signing, and like you say, all the positivity that sits around everything. 27, I think, is a big unit that can play centre, and he said he's coming to win things, and it's that sort of attitude that everybody says that. I guess when they move to the club, it's what the fans want to hear, but. He sounds like, and like you say, read into it what you will, but he sounds like it's a genuine statement that he's making. He's not coming for a payday. He's got faith in what Peters is trying to build here, and he wants to be part of that. Which again, as fans, we've talked on this podcast around. Let's the proof is in the pudding as it comes out. We've been burnt in the last round of international overseas players that we've had. So let's see what happens. But I'm feeling a lot more confident about this batch that are coming over for next season, and hopefully we can get the best out of them rather than just old players who are coming up to a payday and have just seen Rovers as a bit of a graveyard shift to see their days out and taking the money out of us. I think this is a little bit of a different statement that he's making with those comments.
Yeah, it's all good to hear. And James, I suppose Willie Peters, he must be the busiest man in the world at the moment, because he's
sort of from what Frankie Halton was saying. He said he's on the phone all hours and watching all the games and everything, which is great. So it's clearly, he's clearly buying into the club and wants to sort of make his mark straight away. And I think by looking at the type of players he's bringing in, is hopefully going to be delivering on that. And I think, but the great thing is building that relationship already with the coaching staff and the players that are already at the club and are going to be coming into the club. So hopefully when he lands in, whenever he comes to the UK, we're starting pre-season in November, a lot of that sort of bonding and sort of getting to know each other and forming that cohesive team, some of that's already been done. You started the framework already, and then you put it all into action. So yeah, it's all looking very positive at the moment. So
yeah, and there's no doubt he's agreeing. The often problematic right edge, although we have looked, a lot more solid this season in there compared to the season prior. Tom's going to slot straight into there at centre, isn't he?
Yeah, you would imagine that he'd be one of the starting centres regularly every single week for that. And like you said, bringing some balance to what we've probably had as a bit of a lopsided attack and defence in right and left historically. If we can shore up the right and make it as strong as the left has been over the last, the last couple of seasons with that trio that we mentioned previously, if we can create that sort of environment on the opposite side of the pitch, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And of course, news broke yesterday that Michael Dobson appears to be going to Newcastle, taking over from Willie Peters, of course, Hull Kingston Rovers legend. Dobson's going to be heavily involved in the youth side. I think he's going to take charge of their reserve grade team. So there's lots of Rovers stuff going on at the moment, and every day there seems to be some news. Of course, we wish Dobson the best of luck, and of course, who knows, this might be the first steps to a head coach role somewhere in the future. Maybe one day I might end up in East Hull as head coach. Who knows? One thing that I do just want to finish on is the Rovers supporters group Player of the Year awards evening that they held on Monday night at Craven Park. Fantastic evening. Adge Cutler and the rest of the committee at the RSG deserve a whole host of credit for what they achieved, as do the club for supporting it. Paul Lakin was in attendance, as was Danny Maguire and the full playing squad. Really fantastic night. The award winners that evening were, of course, the players. Great to see people like Pete Lancaster and Sue Thompson get recognition. They got awards for the work that they do as a volunteer and at the club supporting the players. The Colin McNichol Player of the Year trophy went to Mikey Lewis, who, of course, also won the Young Player of the Year. The Fans Forum Player of the Year went to Matty Parcell. And then the Most Amusing Player of the Year, which was chosen by Sean Kenny Dowell, I think the rest of the playing squad, was Will Maher. If you saw his reaction when he received the trophy, you wouldn't have said he was the most thrilled to see it, to receive it. So he was a man of very few words upon receiving that trophy, probably quite rightly. But no, it was a fantastic evening. And anyone who's listening or watching this, please sign up to the RSG. Pay your membership. It's not a lot of money, but it goes a long way. They're paying for the salary of the welfare officer for the youth system. We're the only club in Super League that do that and offer that role. And it's heavily supported by the RSG. So the money doesn't go sit in a bank account. It genuinely goes to supporting the club. You can just Google the RSG, go on the website, find the social media profiles, sign up, and it's very worthwhile doing. And that was a fantastic night. Lots of people in attendance. And I suppose, Graham, just before we finish, the RSG supporters, etc. Yes, we love rugby league because it's entertainment, but we still have such an important role in keeping this great club going and thriving.
Yeah, and I think without the fans and the supporters, the clubs aren't anything. It's a two-way thing, and I think certainly with the whole history of our club and the connectivity with the working class people of East Hull, I think there's a genuine affinity to that. And when the team and the squad support initiatives like that and buy into it, it helps bring that that connectivity between the man on the street or the man in the East Stand or wherever you take your seat or position in the ground with the players and that interaction. And I think it brings for me, it's one of those events and evenings and occasions where you feel part of the club and you are proud to be part of the club, and you get the chance to mix with the players. And, we don't get that in Premier League football, or they're too big for all that. But actually rugby league for me is about the players and the fans first and foremost. And you can genuinely, as a supporter of the game, feel for the players in what they're trying to achieve. And likewise, they understand how important the club is to us as fans. And, it can only strengthen that bond, I think, between what we do and sing and shout on the East Stand and the players on the field and how they perform. Yeah.
And I think, I know it wasn't planned to be like it was, but the fact it was in the week in the build-up to the game on Friday, I just felt it was good timing. I think the players got to speak to fans got to engage with the players, tell them how much the club means going in such an important game. So it was a fantastic event. James, Graham, once again, thank you for joining me. It's been another fantastic podcast. Once again, it's gone over the 60-minute mark. I endeavour to get under that. But like I said, there's just so much stuff going on at the moment with the club. How can we not talk about it? If anyone's listening or watching this and you fancy coming on as on the fan panel, particularly any females, we'd love to get a wider cross-section of our fan base to giving their opinions and views on Hull Kingston Rovers. Please just get in touch. You can do it through the social media, DMs, everything. Just get in touch and we'll get you on. That's not to say Graham and James were binning you off or anything like that. It's just,
sounded like it to me, John.
It did.
Shall we set our own splinter group off?
I think we should do, yeah.
There, aren't we? Big custard pie.
Yeah, well, that brings us to the end of another Red Robin Podcast Weekly, which is, of course, powered by 360 Chartered Accountants and Budget Ties Auto Centre. The playoffs are in reach, and a victory on Friday would keep us amongst the playoff pack. One thing that would definitely help us, though, and help us get over the line is a raucous Craven Park under the floodlights. So be loud and proud and let us back the boys to victory. And remember, live, love, laugh and be happy.